Howdy, most excellent rock buddies. Papa here. Hope you guys are doing well. We're going to keep doing this rock ID thing, but I thought that it would be helpful to you guys for us to talk about feldspars and how they help us to identify rocks. Feldspars occupy 60% of the Earth's crust, so they're a pretty important mineral. So let's look at feldspars. And then we'll get back to our rock ID session. So if you like this video and it's helpful to you, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me so much. And thank you a million to all my wonderful rock buddies who have subscribed. So here we go with feldspars. There are three main kinds of feldspar: potassium-rich feldspar, sodium-rich feldspar, and calcium-rich feldspar. Between each of these three types, there are feldspars that contain a mixture. For example, there's a range of feldspars between potassium and sodium feldspar that contain some of each. And between the sodium feldspar and calcium feldspar, there is a range of feldspar that contain some of each. The subject of feldspars is complicated and detailed, but what we want to do is to be able to identify potassium-rich feldspars, sodium-rich feldspars, and calcium-rich feldspars in rocks. Potassium-rich feldspars are always associated with felsic rocks. A felsic rock is a rock that has lots and lots of quartz, lots of potassium feldspar, muscovite, and biotite usually. Felsic rocks can also contain sodium-rich feldspar, but mostly it's potassium-rich. Sodium-rich feldspars are usually associated with intermediate reaction rocks. Intermediate reaction rocks have a lot of sodium-rich feldspar, a good amount of quartz, and usually a lot of black biotite mica. Calcium-rich feldspars are usually associated with mafic rocks. Mafic rocks are dark rocks that usually contain lots of calcium-rich feldspar, lots of pyroxene, and some hornblende. So let's look at each of these kinds of feldspars so that we can learn to identify them, and that will help us know what kind of minerals are associated with each type of feldspar and what kind of rocks they're found in. Potassium-rich feldspar is usually white when you find it in rocks like granite and granite gneiss. But potassium-rich feldspar can also be colorful like this pink specimen. And here's some pinkish potassium feldspar in granite gneiss. Can also be beautiful orange like in this specimen. This is kind of a salmon-colored potassium-rich feldspar. And potassium-rich feldspar, like this sample, and all feldspars have a flat, flashy face somewhere on them. Usually the crystal size of feldspars in rocks is so small that you can't see this flashy face, but in pegmatites you can very often see it, and if you do see it, even in small crystals, you know you've got feldspar. And if that feldspar is pinkish or orangish or salmon or even kind of yellowish, then usually that's going to mean potassium-rich feldspar. And usually when you see a metamorphic rock with lots of metamorphic banding, the light bands usually have a lot of potassium-rich feldspar in them. Here's granite gneiss with some pinkish potassium feldspar bands. So if you come across a rock that's light, generally light in color, and it has lots of colorful feldspars in it and lots of quartz, you know it's a felsic rock with lots of potassium-rich feldspar in it. Here's some beautiful polished granite with some pinkish, probably potassium feldspar crystals. Here's some granite gneiss with light-colored metamorphic bands with lots of pinkish potassium feldspar in it. And here's some rhyolite, a very superfine grained, very felsic lava that's pinkish, possibly because of the pink potassium feldspar in it. Here's some dacite lava. It's a little bit less felsic than the rhyolite, and I see only white hunks of feldspar, but since this rock has a generally light appearance, I know basically it's felsic, and it's going to have both potassium and sodium-rich feldspar in it. Here's some felsic volcanic pumice blown out of the Yellowstone volcano. And Shazbot, and lo and behold, the spun out feldspar is pinkish, and I conclude that's mostly potassium-rich feldspar. Here's a hunk of sodium-rich feldspar, and you can't tell it, but we're looking at a flat, flashy face. This is a hunk of pure potassium-rich feldspar, and it's kind of clearish, but when you find potassium-rich feldspar in a rock, it's almost always white. This is diorite, an intermediate reaction magma, and those white spots are virtually all sodium-rich feldspar. And this is andesite lava, the above-ground counterpart of diorite, exactly the same mineral composition, and those white hunks are very likely sodium-rich feldspar. Intermediate metamorphic rocks usually have a salt and pepper kind of look to them. This is a metamorphic rock called biotite gneiss, and all those white spots are sodium-rich feldspar. More biotite gneiss with whitish and yellowish feldspar. Can't tell for sure, but the yellowish feldspar might be potassium rich, and the white sodium rich, or the yellowish could be weathered sodium rich feldspar. More biotite gneiss, an intermediate reaction rock with some white sodium feldspar crystals and some cool wavy banding. Intermediate reaction rocks, whether they be igneous like diorite and andesite or metamorphic like biotite gneiss, contain lots of biotite, which is fairly soft. You can verify this by scratching it with a nickel coin. Hornblende and pyroxene, two black minerals that you find in more mafic rocks, cannot be scratched with a nickel. This is anorthosite, a very calcium-rich igneous rock, and the calcium feldspar crystals are whitish here. This is gabbro, a mafic igneous rock with white calcium-rich feldspar crystals. The two things that I notice about calcium-rich feldspar crystals is that they are not shiny. They don't look shiny to me. They look dull, whitish, almost dirty white, and they often look ragged and patchy or even kind of spidery like some of these examples. And sometimes calcium feldspar crystals can look kind of needle-shaped like in this example. And also here. Here is basalt lava, a mafic rock that is high in calcium-rich feldspar. And a cool thing about this rock is, you notice, see all this white stuff that's leaching out of it? Well, could that be calcium-rich feldspar or calcium that's leached out from the feldspar? Let's do an acid test and check. Ah, look at that fizzing. That tells us that this is probably calcium carbonate that's leached out from this basalt lava rock. This is labradorite, a bluish kind of calcium-rich feldspar. Very pretty, but 99% of all the calcium-rich feldspar I've seen is white, raggedy crystals that are dull and sometimes spidery and needle-shaped. And so if you find a mostly dark rock with these white, splotchy, and needly looking specks of white in it, you know you've got a mafic rock with calcium-rich feldspar. Okay, rock buds, let's try to summarize some of this. If you see a light-colored rock, a felsic rock, that has orange or pinkish feldspar in it, you're more than likely looking at potassium-rich feldspar. If you see a kind of salt and peppery rock that has white feldspar in it, you're more than likely looking at sodium-rich feldspar. And if you see a dark rock with blotchy, patchy, needle-shaped, spidery, dull, white specks in it, you're more than likely looking at calcium-rich feldspar. So felsic rocks have a lot of potassium-rich feldspar and some sodium-rich feldspar in them. We were talking about granite and granite gneiss. Intermediate rocks have a lot of sodium-rich feldspar in them, as well as a lot of biotite mica that can be scratched with a nickel. And mafic rocks, which are dark and have a lot of calcium-rich feldspar, and usually pyroxene and some hornblende in them. So that's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. The feldspars help us see what kinds of rocks we have and what other associated minerals would be there. And the rock reaction, felsic, intermediate, and mafic, kind of tells us what kind of feldspars we're going to find. So hope that's helpful. Please subscribe if you like this. Thanks again to all my rock buds who have. And this is your rock papa saying, happy rock hunting. Papa out.